This behind one of the Manchester wood Mount Equinox on that side, and into
I was Chief Justice
by gunsmith John Dowd in Goshen, Connecticut. So he died in March, and luckily. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Timestamp. I'm Sean, curator of the Manchester Historical Society, and today we're in Manchester Village. And we're here to talk a little about what was Manchester Village like in 1868. In 1853, just 15 years prior to that, Franklin Orvis had opened up the Equinox House, just up over my shoulder there, establishing Manchester as a summer destination. Now, all these guests coming to Manchester, they needed to be entertained, so Franklin needed a place to entertain people. For the first few years, he used the Bennington County Courthouse, which worked out great. Bennington County is unique insofar as it's a two-shire county. There's a courthouse in Bennington, and there's a courthouse in Manchester. Now, the courthouse in Manchester was used for summer sessions, which obviously conflicted if Franklin wanted to entertain his guests. So he needed a solution. And his solution was to build his own facility. So he built the music hall in 1868 at the cost of $16,000. Now he had a place to entertain his guests anytime he wanted. And as you can see, the music hall, she's looking a little tired right now. And that's one of the reasons we're here today. You know, a year from now, it may not be here. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about its history. On the ground level, there was a billiard room and 4 bowling alleys. The auditorium above with its large stage had enough room for 500 chairs. And on the top floor were guest quarters, and connecting it to Equinox Junior, which was right across the street from the large Equinox house. And actually in 1870, when the new Congregational Church was being built, the church services were held here. And Franklin Orvis waived all of the fees that would have been associated for renting the hall. They had many patriotic addresses here that were started when Memorial Day was instituted as a national holiday in 1876. Julia Grant, the widow of President Ulysses S. Grant, great Civil War president, she actually came here as a guest of the GAR and gave an oration that was well attended. Everybody came, was just absolutely thrilled to see Mrs. Grant. Burton Seminary, they actually held a lot of their graduations, junior proms, numerous concerts, recitals. They would have all kinds of entertainment. And that was all held here until 1913 when they built the gymnasium, now known as the Riley Center. In October 1912 was probably one of the biggest events, and that's when William Howard Taft, then the sitting president, came to give his speech. And there were over 500 people here. Sarah Cleghorn, who was the Manchester Historical Society journalist, made her way here and gave a first-hand account of Taft's speech. And she actually shook his hand on his way out. Taft left the music hall and retired for the evening at Robert Todd Lincoln's Hildene. Another great gathering that was held at the music hall was in 1895. In Manchester, there were about 2,000 people, according to the most recent census, which was in 1890. Quite a few of them were over the age of 80. So what they decided to do was invite all those members of the citizenry who were over 80 years old. They would come to the music hall starting at 9 in the morning. They had breakfast, they had a large lunch, they were entertained, they had a large dinner, and then they all posed for this wonderful photograph standing in front of the stage. And right in the middle is Franklin Orvis with his long white beard. So here we are down on the ground floor. And I'm walking down one of the lanes of the bowling alley. Still here, one of 4. And this was really, the place to be, from the 1860s up until, probably about 1915 or so. And you may ask yourself, well, why the decline? What happened? And really the answer is demand. What we had was Burton built their new gymnasium, which is the Riley Center today. And that was really kind of the new spot in town. So, the Burton didn't need to use the music hall anymore for any of their festivities because they had a spot. The church was there, they didn't need it. As far as the community gatherings, the Equinox House had built up some, other outdoor places. You had the Congregational Church, which was available, and of course the courthouse. So what was the Equinox going to do with the music hall? Well, it slowly turned into employee housing. You know, the big, large auditorium room, it was actually cut in half. They added another floor in it. The rooms were partitioned off. It was employee housing for decades. And then as that started to decline and, you know, the workers became more seasonal, even that stopped. And then it became storage. And it sat there for another few decades. And as you can see here, you're going to say, well, what are all these large things? Well, there have been a lot of efforts. What could we do with the music hall? What could we do with the music hall? And the Preservation Trust of Vermont, they came in, they did studies, you know, they shored up the building, as you can see, to make sure it was stable. They searched high and low. I had a nice long conversation with who recently passed, Paul Brune, who was the executive director of the Vermont Preservation Trust. I talked to him in early 2019 of saying, you know, is there anything that can be done? You know, what was your experience? And he, you know, they went from, you know, coast to coast, exploring every opportunity. What could be done? What could save the music hall? This wonderful old lady that's sitting here in the village. And the answer was nothing that they could find. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent, interviews were had, ideas were floated, brown tables. But at the end of the day, it came down to where it was on this kind of postage stamp piece of land, you know, sandwiched in between buildings that, you know, cut off all the views, and parking. There is, you know, parking in the village today is a premium. So if you were to build something here, what would you build? And we can keep going on and on about what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. And still, you may say, is there a Hail Mary? Well, who knows? This building was supposed to be knocked down this past March, but due to all the lockdowns that happened during COVID, that included the demolition of this building. So that's why we're here this morning, being able to talk a little bit about its history. And maybe, just maybe, if somebody's out there watching and they have very deep pockets and vision, maybe there's something that can be done. But until next time, I'll see you soon. Check it out, Haas.
Get out of the building.
You know, Haas, I think these are spring water bottles, actually. Look, Equinox spring water bottles. We did a show about this.
You know what's going to happen when they...
Do you think they'll let me keep it?
If they tear this down, you're going to be digging in the dirt for days.
I am. I'm going to be like a little gopher. I'm going to be down there digging stuff, finding stuff, and I'm going to be running it down to the Rocking Stone house for storage.
Here, give me a close-up of that.
Yeah. Have a spring water and a smile. You know, there were advertisements back in the 1890s saying that drinking this once a day would add days to your life. Really?